Hi, Jamils. Again, how are you doing? How are you?
I'm good. I'm good, thank you.
Great. First of all, I would like to say a huge thank you for having this interview with us as TUİÇ Academy. I'm so glad to be here with you.
The pleasure is mine. The pleasure is all mine. It's a very important thing that you're doing to us, to be able to give us this opportunity to talk to a larger audience, to people out there, and probably start a process of building fresh relationships.
Okay, so can I ask that how are things about COVID-19 in Cameroon?
Well, the shutdown was released, and the WHO prescribed safety measures are still in force. We don't longer hear news of contamination and death as it used to be in the beginning, but everything is still in force, though the population, the people tend to forget each time they are not reminded that they're supposed to stay safe. But COVID-19, all the safety measures are still enforced in Cameroon. And I'm very sure that with this resumption next month, there will be quite a lot of activity. We at the level of GLOWA, we are planning an outreach activity in schools, and we have been doing some activities at the level of preventing community transmission, especially when it concerns children, because we are a child-focused organization, and there is a practice in our community where children have the tendency of hawking their parents and acquaintances each time they are visiting. So we have been doing an outreach activity, trying to let children change the way that they welcome their parents and their acquaintances home, so that they should not embrace or hug parents until they have.
So thank you for information. And if you feel ready, let's start with introducing ourselves, okay?
Okay.
So let me go on first. My name is Ayşegül Arslan. I'm studying law at Kocaeli University. It is my senior year. So I am an intern on international organizations at TUİÇ Academy. TUİÇ is an association which is interest on international relations studies. So okay. Today I represent TUİÇ Academy here. So let us return to you. Could you please introduce yourself to us, and could you tell us a little about the association you work at and your works? And can we learn how long have you been working there?
Thank you very much again. I want to appreciate this opportunity for me to interact with your audience, and I sent lots of warm greetings from Cameroon to them and from my office. My name is Jamils Richard Achunji Anguaseh. I am a matured postgraduate student of law at the University of Bağlamında. I'm supposed to graduate in December 2021 with a master's in law. I also hold a bachelor's degree in life science, which was originally my dream profession of becoming a medical doctor. But nature had a way of twisting things, and my personal life experience and an accident occurred, which actually opened my eyes to trafficking of children. That led me, because of my personal life experience, that led me to rekindle the passion in me to protect and promote the rights of children. It led me to liaising with other adults who had suffered a childhood abuse like myself. And so we co-founded the organization for which I work now, which we called a Global Welfare Association. It is abbreviated and we pronounce it GLOWA. It is a child-focused organization. It is a survival-led organization that has as principle to break the silence of the vicious cycle of child trafficking and abuse. We are set up by survivors, like I said, and we are working for survivors. And we are building and sustaining trafficking resistant communities. That is our motto. We want to get to the communities before the traffickers do, so that we can inform, empower, and transform, which are our principles. The principle of informing people about trafficking, empowering victims of trafficking, and transforming every other person, be they victims, be they community members, into frontline counter-trafficking activists. So GLOWA enjoyed, the organization for which I work, enjoyed consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council since 2013. And we just submitted our second quadrennial report to the UN. We are also a member of the Commonwealth 8.7 network. This is a coalition of organizations that want to get all the Commonwealth communities rid of human trafficking. 8.7 is the Sustainable Development Goals indicator that is actually talking about important sustainable work, child labor, and child trafficking. Global Welfare is also a partnership, is also a member of the Global Partnership to End Child Sexual Exploitation. We are also a member of the 8.7 Alliance, which is an alliance set by the International Organization to combat child labor within the manufacturing industries, within the demand industries. At local level in Cameroon, we are a member of a lot of networks, and I think the most one of them is the Union of Northwest Human Rights Organization, which is a kind of a non-profit clearinghouse, a resource pool for non-profit organizations that are active in the domain of human rights. GLOWA has some 3 pillar organizations. We have a resource center. We also have the GLOWA House, and we have the Follow Care. The resource center is like the think tank of the organization. It conducts research, it guides principles. These research are transformed into principles, and the resource center runs an analog library for now, but we are looking forward to transforming it into a digital multimedia center. It also has a playground for outdoor activities for children. GLOWA House is the rehabilitation machine. Before now, we have been running rehabilitation by placing rescued victims with external trainers. But with the development of GLOWA House, in fact, we are still developing GLOWA House, which is a rescue home in the first place. And then it is a vocational training center running 3 major vocational options: in sewing, in hairdressing, and leatherworks. Leatherworks is going to encompass everything about shoes, wallets, purse, handbags, and then we are going to have traditional embroidery and modern embroidery. So we have sewing, we have hairdressing, we have leatherworks, and we have traditional embroidery and modern embroidery. As far as Follow Care is concerned, Follow Care is like the name implies, is the support that GLOWA offers to empowered survivors after they have left the empowerment program. This is support like in entrepreneurship, skill development, business plan development, resource mobilization for startup capital and mentorship, and even job placement for those who want to do jobs. So in brief, that is the organization for which I work and the activities that we are doing. Thank you for this opportunity once more.
You're welcome. Okay, great. So my next question is, how is the situation of human trafficking in Cameroon?
Well, you know that human trafficking is a global phenomenon. No country expects. Cameroon is a destination, a transit, and a recruitment country when it comes to human trafficking. And the particular situation with Cameroon is ideal location within the Gulf of Guinea. Cameroon is the route through which migrants, traffickers, and businessmen leave Central Africa to gain, West Africa rather, to gain access to the Central Africa and even moving towards South and East Africa. So until recently, Cameroon was a very, very stable country. So, and this stability in a turbulent Central African, sometimes West African sub-region, caused migration to be towards Cameroon. That is to say, traffickers will, you know, that's one of the drivers of trafficking is instability. So with the relative stability that used to be in Cameroon until the last 3-4 years, Cameroon was the road where smugglers will get their victims and pass across. So Cameroon has been multiple times rated by Transparency International as the most corrupt country in the world. And you know, corruption is what traffickers, the mode of operandi, the modus operandi of traffickers is corruption. So I can say globally that Cameroon has a very, very huge problem of trafficking within the country and out of the country. And Cameroon has a very, very high unemployment rate. You know that with a high unemployment rate, the tendency for people to want to move to go to places where they hope to gain a better life is high. And those are the things that traffickers take advantage of. According to the Cameroon National Institute of Statistics, there are more than 4,000 children who are working in the brothels within the 3 major cities of Bamenda. This is a report that was conducted by the Cameroon Institute of Statistics like about 7-8 years ago. And unfortunately, the state of Cameroon, as per the civil society position that I hold, is not doing adequately enough to be able to address the needs of victims and survivors. There is a legislation in Cameroon that punishes trafficking, but there is no motivation for victims to be able to come up and seek legal redress, because you know it is a well recognized phenomenon that people who traffic and abuse others are usually people who are known by the victims. And so sometimes people don't see their own interest in bringing their acquaintances to court, because the government department of social affairs that is actually supposed to do rehabilitation is highly underfunded and does almost nothing to be able to support the victims. So there is an acute problem of trafficking within Cameroon and out of Cameroon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, what things are doing to fighting against human trafficking in Cameroon? Could you tell us about the government's and non-governmental organizations' works within their framework?
Well, like I said in my introductory remark, at the level of my office, we are doing education, we are doing rehabilitation, and we are doing holistic rehabilitation actually. And we, like I said, we are trying to be ahead of the traffickers. We are trying to be a step ahead of the traffickers. Our resource center, we have carried out some research, and we have a data bank of trafficking recruitment scams. And we regularly also do what I call prone community mapping. When in the course of the year, when we receive reports of cases, we try to rate them just analogically to see which community we have received the highest number of cases. And we do that. After we do that, we identify those ones that have received the highest number of cases from them as prompt communities. And so we interact with the traditional authorities, because there is one thing that actually makes children, especially those that have not had a good education, to be vulnerable to trafficking. The first one of them is the cultural practices of trusting friends and relatives and placing children with them for upbringing. It used to be a very good cultural practice within our culture here, especially in the northwest region of Cameroon, where I am. The culture of when your daughter is getting married, you send your son with your daughter for your family-in-law to raise your son as a way of maybe compensating the family for raising their wife, because, well, inheritance, according to our culture, is masculine. So now, these good cultural practices are used to breach family barriers and create a web within the community, has been abused because of the individualistic tendency. So people take these children now, instead of properly raising the children are abused. No, I don't want that. So I'm actually talking with you from home. So so that is it. People take these children and they abuse them. Then another problem too with our region is that we happen to be one of the highest region in the HIV/AIDS prevalence. And you know, HIV/AIDS is creating a huge orphan population. Orphan populations are stressing the natural family support chain. And each time that family resources are scarce, those orphans are the ones who are deprived of major necessities. So the orphans are vulnerable and they are preyed by traffickers. Well, I can say that at the level of the state, there is the law, and the government has authorized non-profit organizations like us to be able to function. At least that is creating an enabling environment for us to be able to accompany government in what we are doing. So at that level, I can say that government has done quite a lot. But like I say, the government is not adequately doing enough when it comes to protecting and rehabilitation, because it is government's responsibility to be able to rehabilitate victims of trafficking or to cause some kind of reparation. Our justice does not grant some compensation, adequate compensation to people who have suffered abuses.
Okay, thank you. What are the most common patterns of human trafficking crime in the world, and why do you think they are?
Well, trafficking is modern slavery, and so it's criminal. So the trafficking crimes, the kind of abuses that victims are subjected to, sexual servitude, exploitation within the labor, within the domestic service sector, particularly in Cameroon, we have the domestic service sector, we have the commercial sales sector, we have street begging, we have the artisanal fishing sector that is using children and not adequately paying them. So these crimes are crimes that tamper with the consent, the dignity of the human being, and with the dignity of the human being, which is an inalienable right, abuse. Definitely, trafficking should be, and as it is, a crime against humanity like slavery was.
Okay. My next question is, when we consider victims of human trafficking, what are the most common victim profile of the crime, and why do you think these people appear more as victim?
Well, I said before, unemployment, poverty are some of the reasons why people become vulnerable. Those are the elements of the profile of victims of trafficking. When people are not employed, they lack the means to sustain themselves. There is a tendency for them to want to get greener pasture. There is also the huge gap that exists in development between the advanced countries and the developing countries, the cities and the rural communities. It is a driver. It is what rekindles the zeal in the victims to want to move and look for greener pastures. And when the victims want to move and look for greener pastures, they sometimes are the one who approach the traffickers. And so the traffickers take advantage of it. They live in a situation of ignorance. They don't have an idea that what we are engaging into is false. You know, people who live in a situation of inadequate information have a tendency of trusting the people within their community. And this trust is extended even to people who are coming out of their community. So it used to be before now that poverty, lack of education, opportunities for vocational training and unemployment were actually the drivers and the profile of victims. But GLOWA has come to realize that some of those who are trafficked today, some of Cameroonians who are in slavery in Africa and the Middle East are highly trained professionals who, because of the absence of opportunity back home, will want to seek opportunities out. Unfortunately, those who present themselves to them as people who can create the opportunities are really not people who can create the opportunities. They are traffickers. So the trend is beginning to change now from the normal profile of victims who are not empowered now to the trafficking people who are actually professionals, who think that they want to empower themselves and get a better job out of the country to fall into the dragnet of traffickers. Of course, traffickers now are also preying. They are taking advantage, unfortunately, of the information technology system to even move their business faster and prey on victims.
Okay, thank you. So what kind of responsibilities the governments, the national and international organizations and non-governmental organizations have in the fighting process? I mean, I'm asking this question especially in the context of United Nations, African Union, and African nonprofit organizations.
Well, it is like I said before, the principal responsibility of the governments are the principal duty bearers. So they have the responsibility to be able, both at regional and other levels, to be able to support and prevent trafficking. Like I said, there is the principle of sovereignty. The governments have put ahead of other interventions that they are using now to protect themselves from adequately from the intervention of other governments or influential international organizations into the affairs of sovereign nation. So you can find that it is the tendency is that unless one is able to attain a certain level of influence, nobody will care about that person, because authoritarian governments have the tendency of keeping their subjects in a situation of inadequate information, because they understand that the more people are informed, the more the people can stand up for their rights. So as far as international organizations are concerned, I think that they have a responsibility of collaborating with motivated grassroots actors where recruitment takes place. They have the responsibility of adequately representing the position of these grassroots actors at international level by working to keep the issue of human trafficking high on the international development agenda, to create a voice space for victims of survivors of trafficking, because survivors are in their majority lowly educated. They are not given the opportunity to play a leadership role in what actually concerns them, especially when it comes to their own rehabilitation and by implication, the global fight against human trafficking. The non-profit sector is one of the sectors where there is absolutely almost no collaboration. So I think that it is imperative, if we have to fight the global, we have to win the fight against global slavery, human trafficking, non-profit actors and grassroots actors, including the government sector and the African non-profit organizations, have to collaborate. The African non-profit organizations are relatively weak. There is limited capacity. And each time you have an opportunity to approach a donor for funding, most of them will not want to fund administrative costs. And when they don't support administrative costs, it means that the staff of the organization keep moving. You know, when fresh graduates leave university and they integrate the nonprofit sector, in the majority of the circumstances, they are looking for opportunities to build their capacity, and they move to a better employer simply because their future is not assured within the nonprofit organization. Unfortunately, the global north does not support African leaders because those leaders have the interests of their subjects at heart. The global north will keep and maintain an African leader in position in as much as that leader is playing for the advantage of whichever superpower. No matter what is happening, Cameroon, the northwest region of Cameroon where I live, has been in conflict for about 4 years. This is, according to the the Norwegian Refugee Council, one of the most neglected conflicts in the world. Activists are saying a lot about it, but those who are scoring the shots are not saying anything, even when they know that the person who is ruling Cameroon is been there for too long and is aging and is basically not delivering the goods anymore. But in as much as, and that is the same situation in the majority of authoritarian countries, I mean, the developing countries around the world. So I think that the non-profit organizations have, the international non-profit organization and the international community has a responsibility of making sure that the sustainable development goals that replace the Millennium Development Goals should be felt by even the people in the most remote area of the world.
Okay, thank you. So how do you consider the international organizations works on fighting against human trafficking?
It is so vital. It is so important. I said before, there is no way that an individual organization or a country can pretend to combat international organized crime like human trafficking. Traffickers collaborate. In fact, criminals collaborate. They relate so fast. Unfortunately, those of us who are standing against criminals don't effectively relate. So I think, like I said before, that non-profit organizations especially the international ones, because it's not everybody who will be able to be in Switzerland to talk to the United Nations. It's not everybody who will be able to gain UN funding or the funding from a multinational funding, but it is a responsibility of these other non-profit organizations. I am not talking about organizations of the UN system, because organizations of the UN system, they have their way of functioning, which is in line with state sovereignty. I am talking about non-profit organizations have the obligation to collaborate, all of us, from the biggest and the most established non-profit organization, the least non-profit organization. We have to build synergy, because criminals build synergy, and they build synergy, they beat us. If we have to match with them, we have to build synergy, because the moment a criminal crosses border, it is either the state that can trap that criminal or the criminal goes free. But if at the level of non-profit organizations where we were able to collaborate, to be able to share intelligence, then we will effectively support our government in combating transnational organized crimes, including human trafficking, terrorism, and all the others. But the truth is that it has always been a state affair. Non-profit organizations are sidelined. Even when the non-profit organizations have better professionals than within the state officials are trusted. So state officials sometimes are the people who pay the pipers. They are actually sometimes the ones who are controlling some of these international criminal gangs. They are the ones who are eating fat, who are receiving bribe from these organized international criminals. So sometimes you cannot trust an accomplice to be able to investigate himself. The international community needs to try an alternative. Slavery, it is a well-established phenomenon that some of the first international organizations were this counter-traffic slavery organizations. I cannot understand why, for this number of years, the state actors have still not trusted and non-state actors in the name of NGOs to be able to handle, not really entirely handling, to be able to be major actors in countering a transnational international crime. Where each time they want to involve us, sometimes it's for awareness raising. You cannot investigate human trafficking without going to the brothels as a customer. And it is relatively very expensive to be able to penetrate those cycles within the brothels. So these are the limitations that NGOs have to be able to effectively collaborate in investigating and bringing traffickers to book. So it is a challenge to us as the actors and to the people we are helping, like the state, to be able to trust us with the kind of resources that can permit non-profit organizations globally. I'm not talking particularly of our own, but it is the cry of all the non-profit organizations, especially the national ones, especially the small ones, because sometimes when the big ones come and they want to do a due diligence, no matter how passionate you are in what you are doing, nobody sees your passion. They want to be sure that you already have funding, you already have this, you have an audited account, you have this. But if nobody trusts you with the resources, where are you going to have the funding? Where are you going to have the audited account to be able to prove to these people who come with the funding, but they are bringing unnecessarily speed breaks? So I think that it is imperative. I want to insist on collaboration and responsibility, trusting the non-profit sector with a certain level of responsibility. I'm not saying that states should hand their sovereignty to the non-profit sector. No, I'm simply saying that we are credible partners and we should be treated as such.
Okay, you're right. So my next question is, how affect do you think international problems in the process of committing this crime and fighting against this crime? Could you give examples of these problems also?
Well, it is very challenging to attempt to know how the major problems why trafficking and modern slavery persist. However, I think that the first problem is that of the growing disparity in development. I said it before. The ever-increasing gap between the developed and the underdeveloped communities is a major driver. There is also the governance problem, which I also mentioned before. Influential world leaders are only interested in positioning their own in power, especially in the developing countries. And nobody cares whether the poor man in the villages there is trampled upon. And then poverty, desperation, lack of, limited, let me not say lack, limited people-centered development drives these people to want to seek greener pastures elsewhere. There is a link to information. You see, when people live in ignorance, they don't even know what is dangerous. They trust every bit of information that they are given. And so, when you don't know the possibility of being deceived, you just trust anything and you fall into the trap. So those who score the shot at international level have done almost everything, most of everything has just been declaration. So, and we know that declarations have no binding effect. And another problem I think now is the breaking of family and community values. When community's values don't mean anything, it is easy to abuse your neighbor. It is easy to abuse your nephew, your cousin, so because family values are broken. So generally, I think that those are some of the effects that the international problem in the process of committing this crime.
So my next question is, what do you think the main reasons which are preventing to being fast and effective in the fighting process?
Wow. The fight against human trafficking will go by approaching and addressing the push and the pull factors. The disparity in development, it is true that if I have food in my house, I might not need to want food from my neighbor. Or even if my neighbor offers me food when I visit, sometimes I might not want to eat it because I've eaten at home. So this problem of underdevelopment, the absence of opportunity, will push people to fall victim because everybody wants a better life and they are deceived by the people around them. Traffickers have planted their agents all over the place. I also think, like I said before, we cannot fight this fight individually. We have to fight this fight as a team. Unfortunately, there is limited collaboration within the non-profit sector. The moment we don't collaborate to match what traffickers do, criminals in general do, they will always beat us in their own game. Well, there is no human endeavor that can go without resources. I said it before. You cannot investigate a brothel just by moving into a brothel and your badge or your ID and saying that, hey, I am from GLOWA, I'm a counter-trafficking activist. You're not going to do that. So investigative journalists will tell you better that you must go as a client to be able to investigate. How do you go to a massage home where abuse is taking place without going there as a client for massage? And if they say that one-time massage is $5,000, if you don't hold $5,000, are you going to knock that door? So the available funding does not even reach the recruitment communities. Prevention, they say, is better than cure, isn't it? So do you think that if international actors were putting enough resources in the hands of community actors, and by implication, being a step ahead of traffickers, they will have so much in their hands to handle in terms of irregular migration, in terms of rehabilitation, in terms of people drowning in the sea? All the resources that are spent in monitoring the Mediterranean and sponsoring the boats that rescue people who are already on the move. If these resources were to be put at the level of the state or the community actors to make sure that people have something to do, people will not, at least to the least, they will not travel as illegal immigrants. They will travel as legal migrants because they will have the capacity, the resources to be able to cover it. Don't you think so?
Yes. Finally, is there anything else you would like to add?
There is always, there are always things to say, you know. What I want to say here is a very big thank you to you and your team for this opportunity. In fact, I particularly, and us at GLOWA, Turkey is a country that we love. I have actually transited through Istanbul a number of times, and I love the scenery that I see. I just fell in love with that name. And when I traveled through that country, I particularly think I love that country. We have been looking for opportunities to be able to collaborate, to build a relationship with Turkey. And what I want to say here today is simply that your audience should consider this as a hand of collaboration that we are extending. We would like to be able to get really used to Turkey. I am thinking that we want GLOWA we at GLOWA will be pleased to explore ways of building a working relationship with the actors in Turkey. So we are looking for volunteers, non-profit focal points in your country who can be, this could be individuals, they could be institutions, they could be organizations, but we want people who will have the responsibility to be able, because of language barrier, because we have not been able to penetrate or build a relationship with Turkey because of language. I have tried a number of times, and all the websites that I see are in Turkish. So it is it's Turkish, right? That's the language. That's how they call the language, right? Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can hear you now.
So what I'm saying is that we are extending and to individuals, passionate and honest individuals. They could be institutions, they could be NGOs who can volunteer to be a focal point for us in your country, because I know that language has not been on our side to build the kind of relationship that we hope to build with organizations in your country. Of course, everything lingers around resources. So I think that if we have those people, especially passionate human trafficking actors, because one of the things that we need at the level of Global World Association is capacity. So opportunities to learn, share experiences are what we need. And we think that any passionate volunteers, your audience, any of them who is moved to think that there could be a bridge through which we can cross to get a better interaction with the entire Turkish community, can contact me by email, jamils@glowacameroon.org, or you simply go to glowacameroon.org and you click on contact us and you submit an email, it will get to us. Somebody will react, or you call or you WhatsApp on +237 6702 44662. Thank you very much, Arslan, for this opportunity. And I look forward to many, many more other opportunities. I hope that I was able to meet your aspiration and that of your viewers. I want to add here that I am a survivor of trafficking, and as survivor, it's not easy to be able to break the chains of abuse, the chain of the language of silence, and face this of them. This is my very, very first experience to be able to grant an international interview. I think that I was up to the task. If I were not up to the task, I think that a better opportunity will show itself, that we will be able to do better than today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a great interview, and I have to say that I learned a lot about human trafficking from you. I hope we could be helpful to people who will watch us later on YouTube. So thank you for accepting my interview offer. It was a pleasure to have you with us. I think that's all.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye, and thank you.